Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So, I've decided to launch the DirectX 9 version instead of the DirectX 11 version of Pinball Arcade. Having played Fishtails last time and having a ball literally fly through the wall of the cabinet and out of the air was kind of just the final straw, I suppose. Also, my attitude has kind of changed as far as Pinball Arcade is in general. Like when it first came out, when it was big, when it was hot years ago, when they had the licenses, when it looked like they were really working on the program, I could overlook a little bit of bugs here and there. But in 2021, with them having lost the license and barely having any tables that they could sell to new players, I feel like they've just not kept up with the times. They haven't fixed their code. They haven't worked on the physics, and I suspect in part the DirectX 11 version is really just this abandoned beta of software than the version you should use. We see that quite a lot on games on Steam where there is the default play the game pop up, and then there is a play the game with DirectX 11, or DirectX even 12, or uh, or 10, uh, where it's not recommended, it's not the default. You would think it would be backward compatible and you would just be able to launch your game and it would notice whether you could support the new software or not. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a try. Today we're playing the Getaway High Speed 2, so it's just a sequel to High Speed. I liked High Speed. It was kind of a little one note as far as what you were doing, but it had some good table design for being one note.
Okay, buddy, pull over.
And frankly, this Williams 1992 table will probably be better than Fishtails as long as it just doesn't have the slightly smaller flippers. The Getaway High Speed 2 1992 is a spectacular sequel to High Speed released in 1986. So you are seeing here a massive 8-year difference between one table and the other. Um, if you're paying $10,000 to $15,000 or more uh, in modern value for a pinball table, it very well may take 8 years before you could recoup the investment, and that probably highlights why there aren't that many sequels to pinball tables, is because somebody's not going to buy a sequel to a table like High Speed 1 unless High Speed 1 had recouped its money for the arcade. Uh, Arguably, they still wouldn't buy a sequel to a table at that point because they still would have the old table and they would just be too similar. Having a sequel like this only makes sense when you're running an arcade that has quite a lot of pinball tables. And almost every arcade I've ever been in, uh, when I was a kid at least, had maybe 5 or 6 pinball tables. So there would have never been enough room to have the Getaway and the Getaway 2. Remember, also, pinball tables take up a lot of square footage, and they never really did address or fix that as an issue. Uh, Nowadays, if you're going to an arcade that has a cover charge, they tend to be owned by collectors who will have 30, 40, 50 pinball tables, or you're going to a pinball museum that arguably should have hundreds of pinball tables in giant warehouses for you to play. Arguably, I don't even know how you would power that particularly easily. Um, to continue reading, it was also designed by Steve Ritchie. Players shift into high gear as they start multi-ball by running red lights and then collecting jackpots to escape the pursuing police. A standard feature on this table is the supercharger magnetic ball accelerator. That we'll have to keep an eye out for that to see if that works well or is a nightmare, which spins the balls at dizzying speed for wild excitement and scores. An actual gear shifter on the front of the cabinet launches the ball into the playfield and shifts through features during gameplay. 13,259 units of this table were produced. Alright, so let's look at the table now. So in the DirectX 9 version, you still got those two cigarette ash marks or whatever those are supposed to be, but at least in the DirectX 9 version, you have lower quality images in the background as far as pictures, and you have the slightly different lighting. I may go back to DirectX 11 because I may find that the lighting is just not as ambient and bright. Arguably, though, maybe there's just more polish towards the table. So I guess this is the gear shifter. It's kind of hard from this perspective to tell if that's supposed to be a gear shifter, and I'm not sure if you're going to have to move the gear shifter yourself or not. Now, there was a couple of really great driving Getaway video games, so I suppose by even 86 this time, there couldn't have been too much of a complaint around promoting car chases, and I don't recall there ever actually being a big problem around this theme. I could see somebody at some point trying to have a problem with it, but never happened. So we've got a RPM meter like the previous table, similar art, out lanes, ramps going to the in lanes. We have the launcher alley going up a ramp like before, but in the previous table, this ramp was much more tilted so that you had to pretty much use this flipper to go up the ramp. Now it feels like a well-placed shot with the right flipper. And ooh, these are black bumpered flippers, black rubber bands around the flippers. Yeah, it feels like you can actually hit this, although this but large bumper here seems intentionally placed so that you're going to have to hit it with a lot of force and be very lucky for it to actually work. You have a red, green, and yellow light here, red, green, and yellow light here, and then in a slightly different position, a red, green, and yellow light here. You have 3 perfectly placed mini pop-up bumpers. These look like mini pop-up bumpers. Those may be now just by 1992 standards the standard size. And then you have a sink-in shot here that ejects the ball. And then a ramp, let's see here, which has a supercharger and Redline Mania. And this seems to bring the ball up under, and this is hard to see. There's a gap here, and then that seems to shoot the ball back down this way to the in lane. So this ramp that has this huge cutout seems like it's used for something else. How do you get to that? Well, there's a gate here, and I guess if the gate is open, then maybe this supercharger then shoots the ball with such a high speed force that it curves down here. And so you can see little slices of light in between these ramps, and there's no way that's really how that was designed originally. But yeah, it must come down with such force that it misses this whole part and then goes back and then comes back down that way, which inherently makes it feel like you're not very often going to end up in the right flipper. It says drive 65 and stay alive, which is no longer the speed limit on the highways in the United States. Then I don't know how you get to that area either. There's a ramp. Oh, you get that way by hitting that one. Okay, so you are going to actually hit that. What strikes me as strange, there must be just a standing target under that. No, it wraps around to that place. Where does that wrap around? Oh, two roads merge on one ramp here, one very wide ramp. They definitely didn't want you to really miss that very much. No top lane. What's remarkable about this table is just how much this is the exact same shots as the previous table, with angles slightly changed. And that's the thing I've been saying with every single table, is that if you just added a ball saver, or a center peg and a ball saver, arguably you don't even really need a center peg if you have a really good ball saver, but it's kind of nice to have both. If you just added a kickback, if you just changed the angles on a lot of the older tables, you would just have an easier table and more enjoyable table. And yeah, the only thing that looks particularly concerning here is the 1, 2, 3 here and the 3, 2, 1 here, which seem to only engage kickback, so they may not be too much of a focus. It is perhaps a case that when we go back and look at the previous table, there won't be metal edges on the ramps, and that might be part of the goal here, is to just update the technology that would have happened. This police car has a number 63 on it, and I wonder if that means something, like this might have been the 63rd table that Williams had released, which that's somewhat believable. This is not a industry in which you would make hundreds upon hundreds of different kinds of tables. Even if you're making 2 or 3 a year, for the 40 years that you maybe were in business, you would have then only made 120 tables. So our standard goals are to shift in third gear, relight the kickback, become the loop champion, earn an extra ball, and activate multi-ball. I bet with one good game, I get all of those fairly quickly. So, auto launcher is one thing that's different. I am uncertain as far as what shifts the gear to third gear. It's a upshift and a downshift, so it's not a manual gearbox. I thought it would have been a manual gearbox shifter.
Don't move.
So yeah, you'll have a video mode added for the sequel. You'll have have better audio. You'll have auto launchers, and that was a late shot. I don't know what just saved me there. I don't know, there's something about the flippers, they feel sluggish. And I played a couple of games on Fishtails before on the DirectX 9 version, so I don't know if I can blame that. Maybe I'm just not warmed up yet. I guess I really do want to play this table. We still have the camera angle issue. Yeah, I really would say a shifter that just goes up and down is not much of a shifter. So if I was going to remake this table and make a third in a trilogy, I would put a full gearbox shifter, which would be such a unknown thing for most people, because kids are on the verge of not even ever learning to how to drive cars, let alone drive cars with manual shifters. Alright, video mode. It definitely goes to show that, oh, it's not just one quick flip. You have to hold it. I cannot play at that angle with multi-ball going on. And that's where the camera's really going to matter.
Okay, buddy, pull over. Pull over, yeah.
Lethal force? Is that what he just said? Well, I guess that almost seems realistic that should be the way the game should go, is that you should get shot by the police for going on high-speed chase. There definitely is an argument about not running from the cops. Arguably, there's an argument for running from the cops too, and very few people will make this argument, but you're going to get railroaded if you get arrested, and if you can actually get away, that's the only way you're going to avoid ending up paying huge court fees and fines, even if you are innocent. But then the argument against that of running from the cops is that most cops are more than willing to beat you near to death anyways, for just looking at them funny. So if you make them raise their blood pressure and raise their adrenaline by chasing you in a high-speed car chase, they're just going to be even more aggressive and abusive. Alright, so we need to be the loop champion, which we might as well look at the instructions there. The running from the cops, particularly in a car, I think is the worst way to do it, because then you're in a big enough thing that they can follow you, they can get your license plate, and they can get the helicopter out there to follow you, which is what they're showing on the backboard of this table. Plus, it's not like the old Western stories where you might be able to just ride a fast horse across the county line and then the sheriff no longer has jurisdiction, although almost certainly nobody actually got away doing that even. If you were going to run from the cops, the best thing to do would be to run through forested area or alleyway and get away very, very quick before they can call a helicopter that can thermal camera chase you. But once again, then the police nowadays will more often shoot first than never be questioned on it at any point later. So that's not very safe either. And it's not worth your life, potentially. Alright, well that was the supercharger. So that spun the ball around a lot.
Okay, buddy, pull over. Pull over, yeah.
I don't know if I can... Yeah, it is saying lethal force, I think. So, to be loop champion, does one need to hit multiple loops? Or is it just do this? Yeah. Although I don't know what else I would really modify with this table. Like, if you were gonna make a third version of this table, I would not think myself smart enough to improve the table with any angles. I could see putting maybe some more standing targets on the edges of ramps, but that's about the only change that I think needs to really be done here. Not unless you were going to do something crazy and put like a driver's seat in front of this pinball table, which would never work. Interesting, I just launched that with the A button instead of the right stick, and realized that would work. Alright, let's give this a second time. Some of these modes don't explain themselves well enough.
Okay, buddy, pull over.
Alright, and yeah, I think you are going to end up crashing. I will applaud the morals of this table for having you crash and having the police be less limp-wristed about apprehending people that would be driving at murderous speeds. And it's worth mentioning that, yeah, if you are in a high-speed chase, you are at any point risking yourself, risking anyone who has to chase you because it's their job, and risking anyone else that's even slightly near the car. Like you could crash into a house or even and kill people.
All right, up against the counter, buddy. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to...
So yeah, even the audio plays at the end, showing that you don't get away with it at the end of the game. I kind of like that. I don't know what I need to do for the loops, but I think it's probably get really good at hitting the ball in a loop. More and more though, we're seeing tables like this where it's just like intentionally requiring you to...
Okay, buddy, pull over. Pull over now.
Alright, so I won the video mode.
Shift gears now.
I like the idea of shifting. Oh, and you do have to actually use the gear shifter to shift gears. So you want to get the score multiplier in the center of the field. You want to get that into the red line or the yellow line to shift up. And I think here you're supposed to hit the flippers when the lights are lit up. That could just be a random reward, but it sure feels like some of your actions are being involved there. It's interesting that the supercharger flickers the lights when you hit the bumper, but not a terrible thought. If anything, that's quite technologically advanced to have a different thing on the table react when you hit something else. Although that's also kind of confusing, and it would probably be better to simply have the pop-up bumpers light up themselves.
Hop in.
Arguably, we don't have a lot of characters going on here. You have your getaway driver who picks up a lady in a skirt, and alright, that's a little sexist, but it's also not terrible. Here he pulls out in front of a donut shop full of police. Trying to start a car chase. I don't know if it really adds anything to have to shift gear.
Dispatch, this is 504. Suspect wearing a red light. Over. Roger, 504. Apprehend him.
Shoot the supercharger to light the jackpot. It released like 2 balls at the same time, so almost guarantees that one ball is going to drain out fairly quickly. It probably would need a bit of a tweak to either launch the different balls in different places or slowly release 3 of them. If I'm supposed to be really good at this loop, though, it's a kind of hard shot to make because the ball can go in a lot of different places. This table doesn't have a kickback on the right side. In fact, at this rate, it seems like we're going to see very few tables that actually do have a kickback on the right side, or anything that saves you on the right out lane. Which, for a lot of tables, that doesn't matter because you don't drain on the right out lane anywhere as often as you do on the left out lane. It is almost like they intentionally have designed these tables to be left-handed or right-handed specific, which they probably have. Like, very rarely do we see the best of the best shots all on the right side of a table that you'd have to use your left-handed and left flipper to hit. Fishtails was kind of like that. And alright, each time the side loop or tunnel is shot, it lights the side loop for 8 seconds. While this is lit, shooting the side loop scores 1,000,000 and resets the timer. That's worth 1,000,000 the first time. Each time it's scored. Dun, dun, dun. Each speed 1,000,000 score counts as a loop towards becoming the loop champion. First time you score 4 or more speed 1,000,000s, you become the loop champion. Okay. So I have to get 4 shots. That's not an insane number, but the angle's not lining up perfectly. It's interesting that the kickback names you, and it's interesting that the video mode in particular has this map here going up. It feels very inspired by things like Cruising USA. It also feels like this is the first table with videos that are actually cycling through several different versions, because she doesn't always say nice wheels, I don't think. A lot of these angles don't fling the ball directly down the center, but several of them do seem to fling the ball towards the left out lane. So you might want to do a little bit of a switch up there. As one of those cases where you're better off just letting the ball dry. So we're up to 3rd gear. How many gears are in this car? I suppose would be a question. Because you can have 5th gear, you can have 6th gear, you can have 8 gears. The shifters actually on this table are very much like the Formula 1 shifters, I think. Those are the only ones I've ever seen where you push up to shift upward and down to shift downward. There's more car themes you certainly could go with. Flat tires. It would almost seem unfair if the supercharger actually was giving me a higher score just because I was flipping the left flipper at the right time, but I guess pinball works that way for everything else, so why would it really be unfair? So I got the 4th gear. You can see as far as the blinking yellows, I've kind of gotten everything lit. Yeah. This is a table that wants to have speed with the ball. It's not doing anything super crazy to achieve that, which thank goodness, because in a lot of cases, it feels like you could put too much speed. I feel like Black Rose arguably had too much speed. There we go. Average speed 100 miles per hour. And the bonus is held. Oops. So how can I, with the left flipper, get the ball to the right flipper? I have to get really good at hitting the sinkhole to the right, I suppose. There's clearly a lot of shots to make. And I feel like I've probably done some things already that would have been wizard goals. But until I can get this loop down, right? So this is yet another table where we have to get really good at timing one shot, and it really is a timing thing more than anything else. It feels like the map is holding from game to game. There we go. Got it. With considerable help of the table itself. Through this instant 3-ball multi-ball that I started. Down to 2 balls. Down to 1 ball. This isn't a table where it might be smarter to have the right flipper be your power shots, and then your left flipper during multi-ball is just trying to keep the ball in play because of the upper flipper potentially blocking shots. And I suppose the cutout is really just in existence so that the ball doesn't ever lose momentum or maybe there's a way that you're supposed to actually nudge the ball. That might be it too. Almost no shots actually want you to nudge the table though, because arcade owners, even in 1992, would have still been very divided as far as encouraging people to nudge. It's kind of like nudging is the equivalent of card counting in casinos. Not technically illegal, but not also liked by the casinos either. There's a replay. And shift gears again. Yeah, I think this sequel definitely plays better. It definitely takes some modern improvements to a really good table and improves upon it. I don't know, even in 2021, if there's much as far as new technology. You would just replace the LCD screen with actual footage, which I don't know if you would want animated or live action characters at that point. That'd be an interesting question. I would think you'd probably want to just have live action characters if you were going to use a regular TV, OLED, something like that. You can, of course, always improve the audio, improve the visuals. Thematically, I don't feel like anything is... And we've glitched again. Alright, well, let's exit the game and then launch it again. Might as well launch it with the DirectX 11 version then, if we're gonna do that. We'll see how it plays back to back.
Choppers, can you see the suspect?
Now, arguably, what's gonna really suck is I'm gonna find out I didn't get all the standard goals. It didn't save. Yep. Saw that one coming. So we're back to that point. But yeah, there's just an ambient lighting effect in the DirectX 11 version that makes it a little bit brighter. I don't know if it's more true to the real world, but I kind of like the DirectX 11 version better, and I should. I do wish this table had more than one video mode. I feel like that's kind of a mistake. So yeah. But yeah, I don't see was the quick multi-ball that got us the loop champion before. Where's the other ball go? I lost the ball at one point there. Yeah, my eyes don't really want to focus at the moment. There's a jackpot. Nice. 25 million. 25 million also seems fairly reasonable. Like, we have been seeing score creep go up and up with tables, and 25 million's not a ridiculous by 1992 standard. I want to see what the top red light LEDs on the table are about. If those are the gears. Yeah, the timing on those shots though, still fairly killer. And it is certainly weird to have to shift gears, because if you were doing this in the real world, you wouldn't be using an Xbox One controller. You'd have your hands very spread apart pressing the left and right flipper. So to take your hands off the flipper buttons is frankly unacceptable in pinball. So I think you would need to potentially have a way to engage an auto shifter feature, or just have shift gears involve using the left flipper or the right flipper or a secondary button. Yeah, that angled shot, I was wrong. You can't really get it with the lower right flipper, so maybe there's a little bit of room for improvement there. And it clearly is a difficult shot. Unlike the first version of this table, I don't think we are really I don't think we're really in a situation where we I'm like in a frenzy mode where hit anything and everything and you'll get points. Man, I missed that shot again. Yeah, this is Redline mode, which undoubtedly that will be a wizard goal. Yeah, the first table you had to, I think, hit the red, green, and blue. I'm up to 5th gear. Yeah, it seems to stop you at 10 million. Which is fair enough. I mean, they can't let you sit at such high scoring potential forever. The ball is also incredibly safe inside the supercharger. Yeah, I think 5th gear is arguably the highest gear you would get. Otherwise it just gets kind of ridiculous at that point. And there should be like a super jackpot if you shift up to like a 6th gear or nitrous. Yeah. That is 92 million. The top is about 400 million. So seems like reasonable scoring. Yeah. It stops at 5th gear. And that's Redline Mania. And yeah, at that point, I think you probably would just reset. Man, I'm gonna have to like consider just flipping this, flipping the upper right flipper very prematurely, because I cannot lock in that angle. Almost certainly some of that is because I'm playing an emulated version of the table. If I was in the real world looking at the table, I would probably get a feel of it way quicker. And I can't legitimately just blame the emulation and say, well, gravity's not working the way it should work. It's possible gravity is not working the way it should work, but I can't blame that. And it's probably a little contradictory to say this, but I feel like for this table in particular, you are right in not really making characters as far as humans, because this is more about the cars and the racing than it is the name of the police officer, the name of the getaway driver. Like, I assume he's not just some cool dude. He's either a carjacker who stole the car or a drug runner. But getting into that that concept doesn't help in any way for the game. It would be nice if they named the girl, but since she is just getting picked up off the side of the road, I'm assuming the guy doesn't know her. It would almost be funnier to name them suspect number 1, suspect number 2. There, I shift gear. I was able to shift gear while in the multi-ball lock section. We've got these big Williams speakers being integrated. A nice dashboard. Oops, I almost... The sign on the side there made me think that I was going to hit something. Now, my question would be, is there a way to speed up the video mode, or is 100 just the maximum you always get? Precision shots with the right, crazy shots with the left. And there's another case where the ball, the first and second ball are released too early together.
Okay, buddy, pull over. Pull over.
I lost one ball, but it decided to give me another back.
Dispatch, this is 504. He got away. Over. He won. He got away.
18 lights for super jackpot. But can I really? Wow. Oh, there's both balls are in there. Interesting. Super jackpot lit. Good. What do I hit for super jackpot? It's probably that cross lane shot.
You went in the tunnel. Hey, look out!
Helicopter bonus. 50 million for super jackpot. I've locked 2 balls. Interesting, so I don't even know where the ball's gonna release. Well, it was gonna release on both of them. Interesting. So I wonder if I had to hit both of them to lock a super jackpot. And I wonder if there's a double super jackpot or something if I had had 3 tables on the floor. What's crazy is I still don't think I've gotten Loop Champion.
Yeti.
So like I'm doing great here on this table. And yet I'm still not getting that standard goal. And you can't shift, unfortunately, up. I don't know if it really would have changed my score any if I had shifted up at the end of the game there. I don't know what you would change here or even do different to try and have a different car themed table. Like my first instinct would be either to have more car elements or have more have a plastic toy car on the field, or multiple plastic toy cars on the field. Maybe you don't do a getaway theme at all. Maybe you do a car show. Maybe you highlight a collection of really nice classic cars that would catch people's attention. I could see pinball fans also being gearheads. But yeah, I'm not sure what else you really can do. I guess you introduce the concept of a race, which might work. Maybe you have a backboard or video mode or something like that that makes more sense. I definitely feel like this table needs an auto shifter mode, though. You are having to focus around pressing that extra button. Although, arguably, this is something that I've wanted to kind of see done in pinball, and now that I'm seeing it, I'm not particularly liking it. The plunger has played very minimal roles once the game actually starts, so it is an underused element. So by putting a gear shifter there, they are addressing that issue. Oops. Well, I got an extra ball, but I didn't realize. I need to see if there's a way of spinning up the speeding up during the video mode.
Okay, buddy, pull over. Pull over, now.
I'm just trying to keep the ball in play. Like, I think the game made it way easier to get the loop champion than it seemed, because it launched 3 balls all at the same time. And I don't really have a argument as to why I think the supercharger activates on the right flipper, but I think it does. I mean, it could just as easily have been activated with the left flipper. Maybe it activates on both of them. I feel like the loop champion should be more like around the concept of doing donuts. Yeah, I think you could probably do a stunt driver theme on the table, doing jumps and donuts and jackknifing, and not jackknifing, but J-turns, I think are what they're called, handbrake turns, things like that, which I don't know if you can properly emulate something like that on pinball, but you could also have rally car racing would be fairly boring, but a Fast and Furious themed style table would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if there actually is a Fast and Furious style table. There's definitely a lot of movies out there that feel like they could easily have a pinball or do have a pinball table that I wouldn't be surprised actually don't, but I feel like they do. It is kind of a hazy. I feel like in a different reality this must exist, or I feel like this might exist, but I'm not sure. At an hour in, I may just not have enough beginner's luck to pull me all the way to getting this standard goal again. And see, I'm looking at this table from the highest angle when almost every other instance I've played the tables fairly low. Part of the problem is when it loops like that, it gets faster. And it's trying its best to help me, but it can only do so much. The timing messes up. And it's not like it's asking a ridiculous amount. It's 4 loops, not 50 loops, where Fishtail pretty much wanted you to get on the wizard mode 50 loops. I wouldn't be surprised if the wizard mode for this actually is 50 loops also. Okay.
Okay, buddy, pull over. Pull over now.
I shifted down instead of shifted up. Interesting. So you can shift, but it oddly seems to have worked the exact opposite way than it does on the table. I push the analog stick down and it's been shifting me up in the regular game, but in the video mode it shifted me the other direction down to 90. Either that or I bumped into somebody, and you start at 100 and you can only get worse from there. That might be the other scenario. Darn it. My hand has also started hurting, and I just want to mention that. Like, so I'm having to crack my knuckles more than I would ever like to. Generally, I like my joints to never crack, but they do it whether I try to or not. But actual arthritis pain has started settling in. I'll do the responsible thing and take some aspirin after this recording, but yeah, I have been playing a lot of pinball lately, which has been putting a lot of pressure on pulling the left and right flippers and not using any of the face buttons or the left or right analog stick much. So that might be a concern for extreme gamers out there like me, which I guess I put myself in that category for as much as I play games. Is that playing a game like this where you literally have 2 buttons? Alright, so yeah, third is the opposite, but then I immediately crashed, but my speed was 125. Interesting. So theoretically, in video mode, what you want to do is you want to find a nice plot of land where you can drive forward and then lock it in at the highest speed possible. And there might be some tweaking there where they trick you with video effects to make you think like the car is moving faster when it really isn't. Several racing games actually do that, where like getting boosts actually doesn't speed you up. It just makes the visuals feel like they sped you up. I suppose that brings about an interesting thought that I just had, is that why isn't there some kind of integration into some kind of computer video game, something you can take more with you? Nowadays, I'd say almost a cell phone game would be the best bet. But yeah, if there was a cell phone game that the pinball tables, modern pinball tables connected to, and it told you, it let you play something similar. Also, it may be connected to the internet and told you when somebody beat your high score. The idea of convincing people to come back to an arcade to regain their high score could be a real money maker for arcades in general. All 3 balls just launched. Well, I suppose that's the way to get the loop. If you really want to get it, is start a multi-ball, drain all 3 balls, let the auto launcher do it for you. Supercharged max, boost maxed, it said there. So that probably indicates your maximum score you can get on the supercharger. That would make the most sense. I don't understand what the red, yellow, and green lights mean on this table though. Whether hitting all of those on one group increases the score multiplier, which we're not really seeing much of that, or increases an end of ball bonus. Alright, well, twice now, both on the DirectX 9 and the DirectX 12 version. I mean, the DirectX 11 version, the game has glitched right after getting that achievement. So, we've got to figure out a way to exit this in a soft exit. Which I don't know a way to do that. Because hitting the exit button doesn't do anything. Alright, best case scenario I guess would be to hit Alt F4. At least at that case, that maybe will save it. Alt F4 did nothing. Yep, this is working great. Alright, so I can stop the game through Steam, and we know that won't save. Or didn't before. Alt F4 doesn't work. Alt Enter, maybe, and then click the X when you get out of full screen mode. We'll hope that works. If it doesn't, well then, that is certainly a whole new frustration level to hit, isn't it?
Choppers, can you see the suspect?
They don't really do much with the choppers. Yep. Alright, well, so we're just like grade A bull as far as this goes. It seems like there is a glitch specifically designed into this cable where you can never get to standard goal without the game locking up. Maybe I can get it if I don't get a high score. Maybe that's the trick. That's crazy. That gave me a multi-ball when I just loaded. Although this kind of solves an issue too, because if I am guaranteed just the impossibility of getting all the achievements, then the 202 achievements still left to collect is no longer an issue. It's just impossible. So ideally what I want to do here is lock the ball for multi-ball. It does seem like it works on both flippers. Lock the ball for multi-balls. Start a multi-ball very quickly, but not score high enough to really put in a name. That would be the way to try and avoid the crash, I suppose. But that's asking quite a lot, because by the time you get multi-ball, you're probably going to have a decent game going on. So maybe you need to get high scores that are really high first and foremost, and then potentially
you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in a court of law.
potentially get to the standard goal. Maybe that would make sense. The stoplight targets allow you to lock balls to activate multi-ball. There are 3 banks of spotlight targets located here, here, and here. Each bank has a green, yellow, and target. At the start of the game, all 3 green targets are flashing. Hitting flashing scores 10,000. Hit a litter. Unlit scores 5,000. Lighting all 3 green targets scores 100,000. lights the left loop and side loop, makes yellow target flashing. So you have to hit all 3 greens, all 3 yellows, and all 3 reds. Which that obviously happens more often than it seems. The other thing I could do is I could get the loop achievement and then intentionally just end the game at that point. Just stop pulling the flipper, let the balls drain. That way, I know I'm not going to get a high score. But even by the standards of adding ridiculous... Yeah, no, that locked the ball way easier than I think it should have. I must have misread something, or there must be some other way to lock the ball, open the lock. Because, yeah, the yellows are still blinking.
Hop in.
So it's a case of actually you hit all 3 of the greens, and maybe some other things like the greens too, and then you hit all 3 of the yellows, and then you hit all 3 of the reds.
Ron Aiken, license plate, King's Head.
So we're looking for the multi-ball here, while still holding a small score as possible, which is arguably questionable how possible it is to hold or maintain a small score. At this rate, I just may not start the multi-ball at all.
Don't move. Supercharger ready.
Seriously. Come on, shift up. Can't shift up. Too late. Alright, well, I'll put in an initial, and then I'll try and do it slowly here. Because sometimes these have crashed just because I've been slow about it. Wow. So it really has just been, you have to be slow about entering your initials, otherwise the game locks up. And so the wizard goals, which I would have been working on this easily 15 minutes ago, a score of 50 million superchargers, score of 15 million secret mania, I don't think we've seen that one, score a 10 million helicopter bonus, score a 10 million two-way combo, and score 150 million jackpot. Let's see what Secret Mania is. There's a special mode on this table called Secret Mania. Anytime you see your car on the display at the Donut Heaven, and there are 3 police cars parked there, engage the shifter 2 times up or down to activate Secret Mania. Interesting. Donut Haven can be shown on the display when you lock a ball for multi-ball, to light the locks at the side loop or left or right. Completing the flashing spotlight targets, whatever. Secret Mania lasts for 20 seconds. While it's active, all targets on the playfield score 500,000 points. Interesting. Each time the jackpot or super jackpot is scored, the next shot into the tunnel during the current multi-ball scores a helicopter bonus. Helicopter bonus starts at 5 million and increases throughout the game. Each time the jet bumpers increases a bonus, a random value. This is possibly the first time we've seen a random increase in value for any table. I don't like that idea. That's something I would get rid of. I want consistency for the most part. Anywhere between 3,000 and 35,350. That's a weird number. Each time these are spelled. So just play a really good multi-ball and you probably will get a good helicopter bonus. Two-way combo. To score it, shoot the left loop and then immediately shoot the side loop multiple times. Okay. And then the 5th gear award is Redline Mania. Refer to gears in the chapter for details on shifting gears. Once you increase the RPMs to the redline level for the 5th gear, it lights the supercharger ramp to activate Redline Mania. Once it is lit, shoot the supercharger ramp to activate it. Redline Mania is a 3-ball multi-ball mode. When it begins, it awards 10 million points. Lights the tunnel to collect an extra ball. Lights the kickback. Lights the jackpot. And advances the freeway value to 5 million. Each hit on a lit or unlit spotlight gives 500,000. Blah, 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 blah. Scored jackpot by shooting the ball lock from the side loop or the left loop. Once the jackpot is scored, complete a number of loops to light the super jackpot. Each supercharger ramp shot completes 10 shot loops. Number of loops required starts at 20. Each time it's scored, it increases by 10 up to a maximum of 50. So we would probably need the 50 loops, which that does seem crazy. And this is almost a argument for having wizard goals that say hit a loop 50 times, but it still really isn't because the supercharged 50 loops are done automatically. Yeah, it's as if somebody making Pinball Arcade saw the 50 loops for supercharger mode and thought, oh, that's a good idea. Once it requires 50 loops to light the super jackpot, it increases to 25 million each time it's scored. One note about the progression of the Redline Mania is that it changes if at least one ball has been locked on the current ball. Under that condition, the game reactivates multi-ball every third time a ball enters the ball lock. That means scoring a jackpot or super jackpot during Redline Mania may reactivate regular multi-ball. If multi-ball is reactivated during Redline Mania, it relaunches the third-party ball if one had drained. Interesting. I feel like I went in circles there with that dialogue and After Redline Mania, the gears reset and you can begin the process of shifting gears again. Okay. Interesting. Instructions, gears. Shifting through the gears is one of the primary goals of the table. It allows you to build up speed for bonuses and collect gear awards. To shift into each gear, you must increase your RPMs on the tachometer. Tachometer, that's what it was called. I was trying to remember the name of that until it reaches the red line level. Engage the shifter to shift to the next goal. Each gear requires a specific number of RPM shots to increase the RPMs to the red line level. And requires 1 RPM shot for the first gear. Blah, 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 blah. What I wonder is if you get the red line to the maximum and don't shift, does your car stall? Because that's pretty much what it would do, or overheat in reality. Because that almost feels like that should be a secret reward, or maybe it should just automatically shift. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Lots and lots of text, and lots of things that need to be read out loud. It would it would probably be really, really wise had they had gotten some voice actress or actor to just be in charge of reading all of this out loud, putting some video out there. I mean, even if it was just like terrible YouTube tutorial quality, and I'm one to mention terrible YouTube tutorials myself, but somebody should be reading all of this out loud. This should be voice acted. I've seen visual novels with more voice acting than this game has, and when you think about how the pinball is kind of for little kids as much as it is for the older adults who remember playing pinball when they were kids, the idea that they're going to go through 300 button presses to read text is ridiculous. Like, you can see even I'm far too ADD to really go through all that. It's just asking too much. So I guess when you start a game, where you are on that map is randomized. And then I don't know if there is an end to that map or if you just kind of go in circles as far as the burn rubber rewards. Everything seems to indicate you should shift gears as quickly as possible. And I don't know what I'm really shooting for here, so... I guess loop goals and loop champion is as good as anything else until I can either get a multi-ball or start to focus on what the real goal would be. Every single one of those wizard goals were pretty demanding.
Yeah, Carl, your hand is up. You have the right to remain silent.
25 million would have been a really, really high score 10, 20 years earlier from 1992, but now it's just a pathetically low score. Yeah, I guess it is probably a looping thought. So yeah, if I'm gonna get the video mode to like 5th gear, that doesn't even seem like that's a goal of the wizard mode. That's more a personal goal, I suppose. And I think that's what's gonna happen a lot for pinball tables in general, is that I will just, if I'm gonna come back and play a table, it's gonna be because I have personal goals or just a personal desire to play the table some more, even if I've already done everything and scored as high as possible. And that really is the way to enjoy and play pinball anyways. You don't need wizard goals. I have the light lit, which means if I could get the ball into the donut haven, which I guess is what that ball lock is, then I could unlock Secret Mania. That means I have to hit the loop particularly hard, though, and I haven't been doing a great job of that. Yeah, that is becoming more obvious, is that to get the ball locked, you have to...
Hi there.
you have to really hit the loops, the 2 ramps, which it's nice they give you 2 ramps. It is an example of a table giving you multiple places where you can hit the same thing, which definitely makes it an easier game to play. But yeah, you're gonna have to power shoot them. And arguably, even though this is a Williams table, these flippers don't feel weak, so maybe by this table they had gotten away from the weak flippers, or maybe they've just adopted a less greedy attitude of putting weak flippers on tables to make you screw up more. I wouldn't be surprised if it is kind of a case-by-case basis, though, and we do run into some other Williams tables where the flippers start feeling weak again, or we start running into flippers that are non-standard length. Alright, so we got the multi-ball going. What are we looking for? Cross shots? Doubles, jackpots? Jackpot's lit. There went our multi-ball. Jackpot. But because I got the jackpot there, I don't think Donut Haven locked up. It's kind of nice that you have, sometimes you can get away, but at the end you still get caught, morally speaking. Although, arguably, that does introduce the concept that you pretty much lose every single time on a pinball table. There is no end game for almost all pinball tables where you win. Star Trek The Next Generation kind of does have a end game where you win, but it doesn't stop you from playing, so even if you accomplish all your goals, you still end up losing at the end of the day. Unless you want to make a argument for playing a single pinball game that goes on for the rest of your life, and I guess that even at that point you'd still probably die of old age and lose at that point.
Nice car.
So that is a concept maybe I would try to spin on its head if I was going to make a pinball table, theoretically, which I never am going to be in a position probably where I could. There is a I would definitely try to spin it on the head and say you won. Good game at the very least. At the end of every single table. Yep. I want to play one more game. I shouldn't, but I'm going to. We're going to go long at this rate. Notice that this table in particular has not drained the ball out a lot on the left out lane. I have not had a single wimpy shot that that ended up with me I'm gonna have to be a lot faster if I'm gonna drive that way. Like, I haven't had a single wimpy shot that ended up with the ball draining down the center lane. There's been some bounce backs like that, but those aren't terrible even. So the angles things that you may not immediately notice have been majorly improved. And in all honesty, I'm not going to be able to look at a table and tell you if the angles are good or not immediately. I'm going to have to play it for quite a while. And in the real world scenario in which I'd put $1 or more, maybe even $5 nowadays, into a pinball table, I would probably have to hoard playing a table for an hour before I could even begin to say, oh, these angles are good or these angles are bad, if I don't know the table. Video mode again. Wow, that jumped into video mode very quickly. I wonder if the video mode continues where you crashed. See, that was about the wimpiest shot I've seen happen. And there was a center drain out, but yeah, I kind of love this table, but I can't play it any further. Like, I've put an hour and 26 minutes into this table. It would be, frankly, sort of a pleasure to continue to play this table and work towards these wizard goals. I don't really think that there's anything I can really pull off with the ball control, which doesn't really work anyways. Like, because what you're going to run into is that pretty much every ramp is the important thing that happens here. These menu adjustments are all pretty much the same. The only thing I'd really like to see is if you could potentially photo shoot off. Interesting. I wonder what that means. If there was like an idea that there would be like a speed camera, they would take your photo. That seems dangerous. Even in 1992, when privacy wasn't such a big idea, the idea of having a feature that would take the picture of kids, diverter broken off. Interesting. Wow, they've got several different things here that to set to as far as being broken. Mars lamps, I'm not sure what that really means. Then standard adjustments, I imagine, are not interesting. Yeah, it's just your standard balls per games, extra balls, things like that. What I was hoping to see here was a auto shifter feature, but I don't think there is going to be one. Just kind of a shame, because you kind of need it in the video mode. Otherwise, you're going to have an issue. I imagine what the power saving modes really did for tables is it probably just dimmed the lights more than anything else, because I doubt the custom chips that would have been designed in such a way that they could go into a low power mode and still do the attract mode. Maybe you could do that nowadays. I don't know if that's really going to save you much as far as processing power. Like, it's questionable whether you wouldn't just have a Raspberry Pi style computer running your pinball table anyways, instead of, yeah, this is supposed to be, I think, the donut heaven, but there's no pictures to really indicate that that's what that is. Clearly what you would have wanted to, what I would have wanted to do is put the, make this a little bit longer and put the pop-up plunger, which is basically all it is, or the gate or whatever it is down there, put it a little bit further. That way, when the balls roll down, they don't get stuck at this curvy part that's supposed to slow down the ball and clump up. Also, I suppose these curvy parts highlight a factor that you really don't need a big wavy zigzag ramp to slow down the ball. I'm trying to see if there's some other point on the table. There's also a gate here, I think, that I'm not really seeing. I think there's a gate there. Maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just a matter of power. But yeah, there's definitely some great elements here on this table. Let's see. Did we even look at the flyer? No, we didn't. Interesting. Yeah. I am having an off day. Now, I'll say for this flyer, they've run a mistake here by having such a hairy-armed man, because that just screams weirdness. There, also, his hand on the shifter is at a very odd angle. They've tilted the photo quite a bit. But they are definitely selling this table on the concept of a shifter. There's a big police siren on the back of it. Yeah. Suppose this is a table that also, again, is an example of where good tables don't need to sell on sex, because they throw in the girl in the skirt and she's kind of not an element really at all. She's just there as a person. If anything, by 2021 standards, it is an argument towards equality, or at least by 1992 standards, it's an argument towards equality. So if I was going to make the Getaway 3, I'd probably set it somewhat in the future, so that you would have more robotic looking helicopters or drones chasing you, and I would introduce like spike strips and things like that, trackers. I would have a female driver pick up a guy just to flip things around a little bit, but I really wouldn't change too much as far as the table, which inherently that also highlights a problem, because if I was going to remake the Getaway for a second time and I'm going to put all the shots and all the ramps in the exact same places with just a few tweaks, does that really matter at that point? Here we can see overall, all time, we've got tables that are getting 20 billion. Yeah, that seems somewhat reasonable when we're getting 25 million in general. Like my score overall, I've gotten 148 million without even cheating, which puts me in the top 10,000. And then weekly, playing this on a Tuesday. What? I don't think that's right. Weekly, I shouldn't be in the top 9,000. Wow. A lot of people are playing this table. Either that or this scoring is weird. Yeah. This puts me in a weird position, because then I don't really know where to put this table in the top 10. But it is definitely in the top 10. I think I have to put it at like top 5, in the 5th position of the best tables ever. That's what I'm thinking in my theoretical list, in which I'm now not actually willing to make a list, as it were. This is weird that monthly, my score would be 9,126. All time, my score is 9,136. Feels like their data is wrong. Either that or everybody's been playing the Getaway 2 just this week or this month. And that elevates a question, certainly, as far as high speed here, which apparently wasn't in my favorites when I think it now retroactively has to be. And I think for comparison, it is only fair to look at this table. So this is a slower table. The music, this was the first table to have music constantly playing. Now, in retrospect, not quite that good. Here you can see a worse design, in which the balls are not going in the in lane. That was a gimmick that they tried, obviously, and didn't really work. It almost feels like there should be a way to play High Speed 2 that doesn't require shifting. So I definitely would put an automatic mode option in a High Speed 3. But yeah, you can see how the angles on this table are a little worse. There's a little less going on. There's no video mode. The sounds doesn't sound as good. The one set of the stoplight lights are in a different place. A lot of the other shots are kind of in the same place. The ball launches a little weirdly. And it just does kind of feel like a slower game. I would put a radio mode in High Speed 3. Let you shift the radio music, and like particularly in 2021, like putting a couple extra buttons to shift music is not a big deal. If anything, if I was going to make pinball tables, I'd institute a standard music player that had like a radio station Spotify list that was constantly playing your favorites. And that could be something else that's on the mobile app where it has like Spotify integration, playing your playlist for when you play pinball. You can plug in your headphones. You have to be careful about playing it through the speakers if people are selecting a playlist with explicit lyrics, but in an arcade. But as long as you're listening through your own headphones, that would be fine. And you don't even really need a headphone jack. Bluetooth would be something that you could engage in. Notice that there's considerably less voice sound files. A lot worse angles for High Speed 1. And yeah, that definitely explains why High Speed 1 on its own does not justify itself being in the favorites list, or it didn't. It was only through its sequel, which that is an interesting thought, is that a lot of these older tables probably could have been improved upon greatly if they had gotten more sequels. I would pretty much try to remake every table. Good tables, bad tables. So much technology could be added to old tables that there's a lot of room there. Just internet connectivity alone opens up a lot of possibilities. There's the Getaway.
Dispatch, this is 504. Getaway, over. 504, this is dispatch. You what?
And here goes the multi-ball. And here drops the beat. And there I just got a wizard goal. I would put a lot more bass on this table in modern times. Because it clearly is playing a treble sound because I couldn't get the beat. The kickback on this table doesn't launch into the sinkhole, which I wish it would. But I don't think you can make a weird hybrid between this table and its sequel. I think you've got to have a clean break and just enjoy this table for what it is and not try to modify it to have the same layout but play like a middle point between the two tables. And frankly, that'd be fairly boring if there were 8 different versions of a pinball table with different iterations. The score on this table is incredibly lower. You're getting 1 million instead of 25 million. I don't know what wizard goal I just accomplished, whether it was getting an extra ball or what. There's an example of a ball saver being missed. Try and do this real slow so it doesn't crash. I guess that was the jackpot bonus that I just got, which that probably is a fairly high requirement. So yeah, an hour and 42 minutes in. I love the Getaway High Speed 2. It's probably smart that they gave it its own name instead of just calling it High Speed 2, or High Speed 2: The Getaway. Will we see any other sequels? There's definitely going to be spiritual successors to things. Like No Good Gophers, wherever that is probably a spiritual successor to Gone Nuts in a lot of ways. Indianapolis 500 could be very similar to the Getaway. But a lot of these tables just kind of have their own theme. We've seen Black Knight 2000. We didn't see a Taxi 2. What's this table say? I think that says Cactus. So maybe there's a spiritual successor to Cactus Jack. Even in the 2000 eras, most of these tables are not real sequels. We have a Doctor Who from FarSight Studios table. It'll be really interesting. This will be the last table that we play, and effectively we will have to evaluate whether FarSight Studios is actually that good. Starship Troopers is an interesting license. Here's No Good Gophers. This might be Medieval Madness, which is kind of the third game of the Black Knight series. We may also find in the 2000 era, since I don't actually own these tables, that I can only play them for like 15 minutes. So we may have an episode where I just play this table for 15 minutes, then this table for 15, then this table, then this table. Otherwise, I don't know how that limit is really going to happen. Next time we're going to be playing Dracula, so there's a lot of room and potential around Dracula, but it could also be very much just based around the book, which isn't very much around what people generally think when they think of Dracula. It could be very much like Phantom of the Opera, where the table's not that great. Arguably, you almost have a line here of 3 tables that are licensed that potentially aren't as good as you'd like them to be. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good